Well, hello. Happy Doodle and Chat with friends.
Happy Doodle and Chat with friends.
Woo! Welcome, Rachel.
Hello. I'm super excited to be here. All right, the bowl that knows. This kind of feels like that 8-ball that you shake.
A little bit, right?
Kind of.
Yes.
I never thought about that. That's a good analogy.
I am excited that we have a guest today. This guest is the 2024 Illinois Teacher of the Year. She's been an educator for over 20 years at the elementary level, and she helps educators focus on equity in education and helps all educators, students, and families feel a sense of belonging. So her goal is to bring educational communities together for conversation to take care of, and I'm going to quote her here, our most precious resources, our children. So I'm excited to doodle and chat all about Rachael Mahmood today.
Woo! Welcome, Rachel.
Hello. I'm super excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Yes.
Awesome.
So Rachel has been made aware of what she's gotten herself into, and she's ready for Doodle and Chat with friends. As always, we have with us the bowl that knows, and we call it the bowl that knows because it always seems to give us just the right question for the friend that we have with us. And in it are questions that we have written very special just for Rachel, as well as a few random questions that are just in it for fun. So we're going to turn our cameras on, pull from the bowl that knows, and doodle and chat all about Rachael Mahmood today.
Yay.
Yay.
All right, I'm so excited for today.
All right, the bowl that knows. It kind of feels like that 8-ball that you shake.
A little bit, right?
Kind of.
Yes.
I never thought about that. That's a good analogy.
It hasn't let us down yet.
It
So
hasn't.
Good to know.
It hasn't. Knock on wood.
let me find some wood. Yeah, let me find some wood.
All right, Rachel, here we go. What is something people would be surprised to know about being Illinois Teacher of the Year?
That is an excellent question. That's hard to, let me think about that. I think that maybe it's not so much of a surprise, but I think that being Illinois Teacher of the Year is incredibly affirming. And one of the things that I found to be affirming is that you are in this bubble of positivity. Everybody that you meet is just super excited about elevating the profession. And they're really excited to meet you and hear your story, and they want to share their stories with you too. And everyone is really positive and uplifting. And we have a family. It's called the Illstoy family, the Illinois State Teachers of the Year. And you're joining this group of people that want to support you and elevate you and are positive, and they're amazing role models. But I think the most surprising thing for me from day one was I didn't know what a big deal it was. I'm sorry, I'm coming off of the tail end of a sickness, so I'm like still coughing here. So I got my honey and my tea, but excuse me. But so anyways, I think that when I was named, I knew it was a big deal. I knew it was special. I knew it was a big award. But when I walked in and saw like ABC News, NBC News, CBS, the Daily Herald, the Tribune, I was like, whoa. And so I think that the initial surprise was, this is a really big deal when all those news cameras are like in your face. And I was also coming off the tail end of being sick that day as well. And it's all like a Sudafed phase, it's like, oh, but, and because it is such a big deal, you find yourself in all these really cool spaces to meet all these really inspirational people. Like you meet, people that are doing the work, you meet teachers that are just amazing teacher leaders, but then you meet all these government officials. And, I got to talk to the Deputy Governor of Education of Illinois. I got to befriend the State Board of Education Chair, Dr. Asoye, and and be in these spaces with people that not only are leaders, but have the power to make some really amazing, positive decisions for education. And then we got to go to Google, which was really exciting. The Google headquarters, all the state teachers of the year from each state get together and they travel to Google together, which was amazing. We were like going up and down the hallways and we found like their micro kitchens and we were like stealing all the chocolate and like all the food and we were like putting in our bags. And one of the people that works there walked by and was like, "Oh, it's okay. You can just take whatever you want." And like as teachers, like with like free food, we were just like, we were still like stashing it. It just felt like we couldn't like have free access to like as much food and snacks as we wanted. And we kept walking around going, imagine if this is what schools were like.
Right.
We could just like walk around and we had like a micro kitchen that just had like an endless supply of like snacks and chocolates, and it was funny. So yeah, a lot of great surprises, and they're still coming. There's, I'm still have some time left. So yeah. Oh, I guess building off of the Google experience is that it was also a pleasant surprise that all the state teachers of the year that you meet, like we got together for our very first event and it was like you met all your soul sisters and brothers like in one go. I was telling my mentors, like, I'm scared I'm not going to meet my people. And like, because you're just going there one person, right? And from every state. So you're like, you don't know if you'll make friends or not. You don't know anybody. And she was like, trust me, you will find your people. And like, I was like, I found my soulmates. And so all these teachers, they just feel like, just so inspirational and you just make friends with them right away. And that's just been amazing as well.
It has. That's cool. I have some friends who have been teachers of the year, and I think they share that same feeling that you just shared. And I think it's just exciting to hear you talk about it. First of all, it brought back some great memories when you talked about Google. I'm a Google innovator, so we also get to go spend some time at Google. And that was the same experience. As you were saying that, I was like, I felt the same way. Like, why can't we make schools like this? Put some nap pods in. We might need a nap today.
100%. And just how beautiful it was inside, like in the Googleplex, they took us, we spent the whole day there. So we went to like the Google store. We were in like the training centers. We went to the Googleplex. We saw the art installations and like the whole experience was just, I was taking video after video. Like imagine if schools were this beautiful, if this much thought was like put into the architecture and the design and the usability, all of it together just made you feel very much like you belonged. And I felt like I belonged at Google, just by walking in. I was like free food and art and a beautiful space, a place to nap. Like, yes, I belong here.
100%.
Are we pulling the next question or do you want me to keep talking?
No, you're great. You're finishing up and then we've got a next question.
A little quiet space is okay.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
Okay. That was a wonderful question.
That was great.
So much fun to hear all about that. That's new. That's someone that's new to me. I've never met an Illinois Teacher of the Year. So now I have. I can say I know Rachael Mahmood. I interviewed her.
Absolutely. And I could come to your school and I can visit.
That's right. You could.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
The bowl is keeping us on a theme. They must change what they reference and include in the curriculum, as well as how they roll out lessons to capitalize on students' needs, you wrote once. What impact does this kind of teaching have on learning?
I think that when I think about schools and the way that, we were educated coming into schools, coming into the teaching profession, it was still very archaic, I think college does a great job of like helping you think outside of the box. And then like you come into like your classroom and they're like, this is how we do things. Okay, yes. Good. You guys are nodding along. So it wasn't just me.
No.
But I loved college. I loved how, it helped us to dream about what education could look like. and I had some amazing professors that had some really out of the box ideas. And when I came to school, I wanted to, I think that when I think about schools and the way that, we were educated coming into schools, coming into the teaching profession, it was still very archaic, I think college does a great job of like helping you think outside of the box. And then like you come into like your classroom and they're like, this is how we do things. Okay, good. You
Yes.
guys are nodding along. So it wasn't just me.
No.
But I loved college. I loved how, it helped us to dream about what education could look like, and I had some amazing professors that had some really out of the box ideas. And when I came to school, I wanted to implement them, when I wanted to be the out of the box teacher and I wanted to keep pushing the boundaries of what education could look like. And part of that is understanding that our community is constantly changing. Implement them, when I wanted to be the out of the box teacher and I wanted to keep pushing the boundaries of what education could look like. And part of that is understanding that our community is constantly changing. And it is up to us to observe that, right? And to continue to make the connections back to the learning. And that means two things. That means one, what we teach needs to continue to evolve. The skills that students need are different than what they needed 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago, but also how we teach. And I think that the evolution of curriculum has been moving incredibly slow. This idea of, there is a certain amount of, I would say like community wisdom that needs to be preserved. I would 100% agree with that. But at the same time, so much of what students learned when I was a kid can easily be searched up nowadays, And so I think about in my lessons that I teach, every aspect of what I teach needs to have a little bit of identity building in it. It needs to have a little bit of community building in it, and it needs to have a way for students to branch off into something that they're interested in learning about and provide the skills necessary for them to get there. And some advocacy, right? Because our community is constantly changing, so they need to be able to advocate for that community that they're dreaming, that they're going to live in one day in the future. And so that's really about what I teach. I think about every time I teach something, is this going to be something that's going to prepare them for being a lifelong learner? Or is it going to give them the skills to continue to research and to continue to be able to explore things that they're passionate about and grow and learn? Can they find the answers to the questions that they have in life? And can they advocate for the community they want to live in? I mean, I think that's really the crux of it. And then the second part for how we teach, this sitting in desks, facing forward, even I remember, I think it was in like 5th grade when they turned the desks towards each other and they said, "This is a pod." And we were all like, "Oh my God, do you have the teacher that makes the pods?" Like, oh my God, my teacher still has us in rows. Oh, our teacher turned the desks together and made a pod, and since then, I feel like not much has changed, We're like, let me show you how we do collaboration. We move the desks in pods. I feel like when you walk into a classroom and you see the desk arrangement, it's like right away you're like, okay, I understand this teacher. But how do we disrupt that altogether? Like we were talking about Google, like how do we make our classrooms a space where it just feels so incredibly affirming when you walk in? When kids walk in, when I walked into Google, I was like, this place is magical. Imagine if we felt like our classrooms were magical when we walked in.
Yes.
That they were so out of the norm. So I think that that is part of it too. And then the other part of it is how we teach. I think that we are a paper-based profession, and I don't think we need to be. Excuse me. I think that we need to do more simulations. We need to do more projects. I think that there needs to be more cutting and gluing and creation, design, synthesis, and those are all things I bring into my classroom. I do everything from I have mock trials, courtroom trials, debates. My kids do green screen activities. We make like news broadcasts using the green screen. We do like mini speeches of where we want to go in the world. And then I green screen them and then put like them actually in the place they're dreaming about behind them and give them those photos. We do fake book pages instead of Facebook pages. We design them on the computer. King George versus George Washington. And we talk about like how we do each of their fake book pages separately as a compare and contrast exercise. What would King George say about the Boston Tea Party? What would George Washington say about the Boston Tea Party? They have to both do a post, and they're like, who would their friends be? And, what would their tagline be? And what would their bio say? And I have these cute little fake book digital sheets that I got, and I, have the kids design their little fake book pages, which is always a lot of fun. It's like graphic design, try to think about what else. I have this American, we do this Native American museum, and the kids all study different tribes and they make all the artifacts, and that's always a lot of fun. A lot of technology I use in my classroom, a lot of like open-ended stuff. Like we do this project on Earth spheres interactions, and I don't tell the kids what they're supposed to make. Everybody's making stuff from drawing posters to, Google drawings to slideshows to 3D models, simulations, movies. They come up with whatever they want. The rubric is the same, but they can create whatever they want. And that's how everything in my classroom is. Oh, I do clothespin dolls of the unsung heroes of the Revolutionary War. They're all people of color and or women, people we never learn about. And the kids not only make little fact cards about them, but they glue together clothespin dolls. I always say I don't teach unit to unit. I teach project to project.
No, I like that because the units are embedded in the projects then, the learning, and the learning is student driven rather than you driven too.
Exactly. And it makes me excited to come to work too. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't miss today. It's clothespin doll day. It's green screen day. And like, I'm excited to go to work. And I tell my kids like, oh, our next thing we're going to do in ELA is we're going to make a movie on it with a green screen. And you guys are going to be news broadcasters, and we're going to like write the scripts, and you're going to get to dress up. And like, I really sell the project on day one. Yeah. In order to do this project, we have to read this book, Team Moon. Yes. And we have to explore all the challenges, and it's a problem solution book. And we unpack all of that. And we talk about, who was in the frame and out of the frame during the Apollo 11 landing. And we try to find all the voices of people who weren't in the frame and all this stuff. And so they know that they're doing all that research with a purpose.
Yes.
And the purpose is to get to that movie. Right. And so everything they do is just deeper, more enriched, and it's naturally differentiated because every kid just takes it as far as they can, and they get to all see what everyone else can do. And when they start seeing other people's projects, trust me, they push themselves. Yes. I don't need to be the one pushing them.
For sure. I love it. Those were great ideas. I love it. And I remember too, the quote that the article's from. I think the other thing that I love that you bring into the message that you share, in addition, to being very hands-on in this innovative teaching or pushing forward with your teaching style, but you also pay high attention to the individuals in your classroom and their interests, and making sure that those are always, like I drew a mirror on here because that's what it made me imagine, because it brought me back to the article. You're always making sure that they see themselves in what they're doing. And if there's not something in what you're teaching that shows them that, you're intentional in bringing that in, which I also I appreciate very much. It's a good reminder for those of us who do it. And it's an even better lesson for those people who need to continue to strive to make those changes. If our curriculum isn't built for the learners that we have in our classroom, that there's plenty of ways these days to make shifts and changes to make sure all of our students are seen within what we teach.
Absolutely. And just to build off of that, like when I said every unit I teach has to have some portion of identity building, that could be as simple as with this Team Moon book I was talking about that explores Apollo 11 and the astronauts. One of the things I ask students to do is to think about their own culture and
Mm.
Google that. So they'll be like Mexican astronauts, you know, like African American astronauts, Pakistani astronauts, like Syrian astronauts, Afghani astronauts. My students think about their own cultures and they Google that. And then we write down like all these different astronauts. So, like, that's as simple as it can be to build the identity in, is to take 5 minutes out of the beginning of a lesson and say, like, this is what we're learning about. Like, let's just do some open research and like search to see if you can find an astronaut that's from one of your identities. And so the same thing with like, um, if every piece of your curriculum has some type of identity building in it, then it's easy to tailor it towards students' identities. And those are experiences where you don't have to go out and find every single group yourself. Like that's where we let students be in the driver's seat and they can find a lot of those connections on their own. We just have to provide the time, space, and resources to do that.
Yes, I love that. I love how you just like kind of close that kind of like, well, but I don't have time to do all that in my classroom. It's really not that hard. It was just as simple as what you just did. It was just as simple as asking a question. You didn't even have to do any classroom prep. You didn't have to do anything. I mean, maybe for some of our learners, they might need a little bit more scaffolding to get to that where they're going to be. But I'm sure, about this time of year in your classroom, you pose that question out there, your students know exactly where they're going for the information and how to get it. And all it took was you saying the thing. You didn't even have to like make up a big project or make up anything. It was just posing a question to close that gap between the curriculum and students being able to identify with themselves. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even need to research. You can just say, you know what? There are Pakistani astronauts, and there are Afghani astronauts, and there are Syrian astronauts, and there are African American Black astronauts, and there are Mexican astronauts. Just say it out loud so they know it. And I bet those kids are going to go home and they're going to look for some of those people on their own, even if you don't have time. Sometimes it's just being intentional in saying what the curriculum is not saying.
I love it.
So you make space for it. And I look at my students' cultures, I know what they are, and I can just call it out right there and say there are all these different astronauts. And the kids will say, like, well, is there a yes, there is. There is.
The other part about that I really love is, and you mentioned it earlier about finding answers. I am a huge advocate of let's stop just telling kids how to do things and let's provide them the tools so they can find things themselves. And so when you said have them go look for it, yes, let's teach them that that's how you go about. If you are interested in knowing something, here's what we do. Here's the process that we can follow, and just providing that space for them to be able to do that. Because as you said, with that traditional education system, teachers sometimes like to be the sage on the stage. They like to be the ones that present the information. It's not helping our students usually. We can be a resource. We don't have to be the only resource.
Absolutely. And they only listen to like 10% of what we say anyways. So
it's the truth, isn't it?
So true.
But if we're saying things worth listening, they'll listen harder, won't they?
That's right. If you tell it like a story.
Yes.
And that's what I always try to do. I always try to storify as much as I can. I tell it like a story. I'm like, let me tell you the story. And the kids are like, well, what story?
Well, and the gamer in me is like, you're just onboarding them. Like you're just telling them a story, just like a video game would too. Like there's just so much richness in storytelling that just gets people interested in what we're doing, right?
100%.
Oh, what was your go-to stress busting activity, your favorite memory, and the hardest thing about writing your dissertation?
Are those all about my dissertation?
Yeah, I was like, she's a doctor. I'm going to ask her something about the dissertation process.
Here's a funny story about my dissertation is as a woman and as a leader in education, right? And as a mom, I tried really hard for my grad school to not interfere with my marriage and to not interfere with my children. And so I remember that like every night for 2 years, I would put my kids to bed. I would sit like in the nursery on the floor by the glow of my laptop and like slightly be typing while looking for monsters under the bed or out of the closet, you know. And then my kids would go to sleep and I would go to like my husband's room and I'd give him a kiss on the cheek as he's like scrolling YouTube in bed, you know. And then I would creep downstairs and I would type my dissertation from like 9 o'clock till like midnight, almost every single night. And then I would creep back upstairs. And I would try to slip into bed without anybody like noticing that I was gone. And I would sleep until like 6 a.m. I would get up, I'd go to work, and I'd do the whole thing over again. And I remember at my graduation, like somebody was talking to my husband and they're like, oh, I don't know. My husband's like, I don't know when she wrote her dissertation. Like, I don't even know when she got it done. And I was like, oh, honey, it was while you were sleeping, you know? And I think about, you know, being a leader in an educational space and being a woman and having our own dreams, but yet like this push and pull we have with being a mom and being a wife and, you know, all these other things I have to do. My dad is also very sick. He has Parkinson's disease. And so like, I'm also a caretaker for him, you know, and how do we find these private spaces where we can like carve out for ourselves to do the things that we're ambitious about without our family feeling the weight of that. And so that was a big thing for me, you know. That was probably, I don't know if it was a good memory, but it was a memory. There was also some memories of me like dragging my children to the interviews. My son was 4 and I was pregnant with my daughter when I was doing the interviews for my dissertation. So like she went with every interview with me. I remember like I would just like sit them in the corner while I interviewed these people. I would sit my son in the corner of his iPad and I was like so big. I was like, all right, let's do these interviews, you know? But yeah, I think that I don't know if I had something to bust the stress. I guess I loved what I was doing, so it just didn't feel stressful. My husband and I each had like one night where we could like go out and do whatever we wanted. Like his thing always involved his friends and like actually going out and like hanging out. And mine was like grad school, you know? And so like I used my one night a week for grad school for like all 9 years it took to like do it. But I found my people at grad school, you know. I found the people who were doing the same work as me that were passionate about the same things. I was excited to learn. And it was exciting to like fulfill my, you know, my dreams. So I think that it was not stressful for me to do the dissertation and to go to grad school because I loved what I was doing. That certainly doesn't mean it wasn't hard, but it wasn't like, I don't think it was de-stress. It was the other kind of stress. Was it eustress?
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure.
And so, but yeah, no, it was a great experience. And I'm glad that I decided I knew it was a goal of mine from when I was young. I'm not sure if you know this, but both my parents are physicians. So like being a doctor was something that my dad especially pushed pretty hard. I mean, I always say like, you know, being the child of 2 doctors, I had no choice but to become a doctor. But don't talk to my dad about that because he'll tell you I'm not really a doctor. He is hilarious. He's like still telling me I can go to medical school. And I'm like, nobody goes to medical school in their mid-40s. But he's like, Rachel, you can still be a doctor, you know? But
I have a daughter who is a physician. And then I have my doctorate in education. And she was very proud of me when I got it because I finished before she finished medical school. But people will be like, we have multiple doctors in the family. And she's quick to say, but only one physician. Well, 2, because my brother's also a doctor.
yeah.
She's quick to say, but only physician. Like we also have physicians. So
Yeah, it is a thing for sure.
it is.
My dad will often say, this is my daughter. She has PhD. And then he'll like turn to me and be like, it's not an MD.
And that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. But I was gonna say, because I knew that was a goal of mine early on to be like, because I would always say, like, I'm gonna be a teacher and I'm gonna get a doctorate degree. And my dad would be like, "Rrr," you know. So I like knew it was a goal early on. So I just went straight through. Like I got my teaching job within a year, I was in my master's. I finished my master's within a year. I signed up for the doctorate program, but I just did one class at a time. And it took me 9 years to finish.
Ah,
But I knew it was a goal. So I finished pretty early. I think I was like 34, 35 when I finished. So I was like, I went like right through. And so, yeah.
what did you do your doctorate on?
So it was from Northern Illinois University, and it was teaching, learning, curriculum, and instruction with a focus on curriculum leadership.
So currently, I have the privilege of helping people write their dissertation. So I'm an administrator during the day, and I am a dissertation advisor and teacher at night for a university. And so it thrills me to hear you say that you enjoyed the process. It is so much easier to work with people who are motivated and really want to get that done, and others whose school is maybe requiring it. They are not quite as motivated to get it done. It's a little bit harder to be that motivating factor for them, because sometimes you do have to be that for people who don't have that intrinsic reason to be doing it. So
I would say the advice on that is to pick a topic that you really are passionate about, right? Being that lifelong learner, something not that you just think that people want to read, but
right.
something that you actually care about.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew what my topic was for a good 2 years at the end of my program. And so what really helped me was every paper I ever wrote, I wrote it like when we can write it on anything you want. I always slanted it towards what my dissertation was going to be about. So that means that no research was wasted. By the time I got to my dissertation, I had so much literature to use in the literature review, and I knew what I wanted to do my paper on. Like I could take a lot of my previous papers I had written and kind of copy and paste them together in a way that I had that literature review done. Now, I would say the literature review is probably like the part of the whole thing. So I can understand that. But I actually chose to do my dissertation portraiture style. So I use Lawrence Lightfoot's portraiture research. And so all of my dissertation is written in narrative stories. They're all written as portraits of the people I interviewed. And so it's very readable and it's very narrative. And even my grandpa, who never went to college, read my dissertation and was like, this is amazing because you connected with the people and the stories. And my dissertation was on low income African American mothers and how they navigated the suburban educational landscape. And so I wanted teachers to be able to read that and connect with the moms, right? Connect with the mother struggle, connect with being low income in a suburban community, connect with being African American in a predominantly white space, connect with, their lived experience and understand they are involved in their children's educations. They just may not be doing the things that you're looking for, but they are definitely doing things to support their children's education. And I think that goes from saying like, checking boxes of what parental involvement looks like to just asking people, how are you involved in your child's education? And that is a big shift that I've been trying to make in the spaces that I'm in, is that if you are measuring the behavior of another person, you need to start by asking that person what the outcome of that behavior actually looks like. Because they may feel like they're killing it.
Yeah, true.
Right? And then you're like, man, this person is failing. Because you have two different definitions of what that should look like.
Yep.
And that's exactly what was going on. My schools thought the mothers were not meeting expectations, and they thought they were killing it.
That's a really powerful reminder, I think. It just gives teachers, every once in a while we need to check, and that's a good check to have in our mind, that we don't assume things from students or the families that we serve, right? That if we have questions or if we have wonders about why things are happening, there might be questions are probably better than assumptions, right?
100%.
If we spent your favorite day with you, where would you take us and what would we do together? And this is after your dissertation, okay?
Okay, yes. First of all, we would not be in America. That's for sure. My husband is from Pakistan. And we go to this place in Pakistan. It's the northern areas of Pakistan. And it's where the Himalayas, the Hindu Kush, and the Karakoram mountains meet. And so we go to Pakistan every year to visit his family. But since we've discovered the northern areas of Pakistan, we try to slip away for a few days to the northern areas. Check it out. It's like Kashmir. It's beautiful. We're like driving down the old Silk Road. I do feel like I'm going to like vomit at times because that's like a very dangerous and like curvy highway. But like, you know, the mountains are really tall. They make the Alps look like the Appalachians. Like it just, you know, they're just, the mountains are tall. You're like so high up. There's like this really beautiful river. The Indus River is there. The Skardu River is there. Now, like it's become a touristy spot. So like all these really like fancy hotels have like popped up, but they're like affordable for us because like it's on the Pakistani rupee. So we're staying in like all these hotels that if they were in the US, we would never be able to afford to stay in them. And they're like boutique and they're unique, and you're meeting all these like people from like these small villages as you drive through, and like kids. And we went to this one place called Rainbow Lake. It was in Kashmir, and it was so beautiful. It was so like crystal clear. And there was a lake next to it called Crystal Lake. And there was this huge glacier. And we were standing at the point where the glacier turned into a river.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
you could just see it melting live. And my kids are like hacking the snow on the glacier. And then it's like glacier. Then you turn and it's like river. And it's like huge. And it's just like, you know, and you're just like, you see the point and you're just like, where is it even melting? It's like still. And then it's like, you know, so much movement. And it was beautiful. And there's like little horsey rides and all this stuff. And then we were driving back and we stopped in this village that looked so beautiful. It was like built on stilts kind of. And it had like all these different like wood cabins and stuff. And then we stopped at the village and we asked them if we could walk around, and they gave us a tour through their village, and we met like all these villagers, and the women invited me inside their homes for tea. And I would say that was a pretty perfect day. I mean, it was beautiful. It felt like crazy that people like live in spaces like that all year round. It's not just a vacation, you know, it's gorgeous. And just like, my favorite vacations are ones where you get to explore a totally new culture. And so, I prefer not to be on a beach. I prefer to be like like, you know, engulfed in a new culture and seeing like a different way of life.
I love it. Kind of like your teaching and your dissertation.
Well, I have kind of like a unique identity. My mom is Russian and Jewish, and my dad is Indian and Hindu. And then I married a Pakistani Muslim. So we have like a lot of cultures in our family. And so, you know, we're just very like into like learning about different cultures and going to spaces, and traveling is pretty high up on the list to make a day perfect.
I love it. I love it. That would be a wonderful day. I will take that ticket with you.
I was gonna say she definitely made me want to go visit like immediately.
Yeah. I would 100% follow like on Instagram, look for like any Pakistan travel, like Traverse Pakistan's a good one. And they post like all these like, you know, reels of the northern areas of Pakistan. It's been like an Instagrammer's paradise. Like when we went there, we were like we were next to all these like climbers and stuff. They're like, we're here from Colorado because we're here to climb K2, you know, and like the whole plane was just filled with like tourists, which people don't think like tourists would go to Pakistan, but there's like so many for the northern areas.
That's awesome. I love hearing about that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think we have time and room for one more question, Mandi.
Yep.
All right.
I'm ready.
Oh, I couldn't think of a better question to end on. What are 3 timeless strategies and or mindsets for any educator?
Timeless strategies and or mindsets. Well, let me see. I think obviously we've hit on a few, but timeless strategies are 1, you have to love your job, right?
Yes.
So I think that we remember teachers who love their job. We remember the teachers that are passionate. So I would say first, what makes you love teaching? And how do you lean into that every day? And part of one of my keynotes I give, I talk about how do you bring your passions to work with you every day? You're not going to be passionate about everything you teach. You're not going to be passionate about every part of your job. But if you don't find ways to incorporate what you are passionate about into the classroom, then you are going to get burnt out. Because after 20 years, I don't feel burnt out. I feel fired up. So
Agreed.
what keeps me fired up? I think it's because I know how I like to teach. I like to teach project to project. I like to teach, in a way that makes me excited. I never miss project days, like I move the project days around so I don't miss them, I'm a project person at home. I'm a project person at school, and being a project teacher makes me want to come to school, And then I would say too, what about your students? So much easier to teach when your students want to come to school. And whenever I pass something out, I'm always like observing my students. If they're like, I'm like, okay, let's find a way to make this fun. Let's gamify this. Let's storify it. Let's change it up a little bit, because kids who want to come to school just learn. Kids who love school learn. So I would say a strategy is find ways to make your kids fall in love with school. If you wouldn't want to do it, don't give it to your students,
Agreed.
And I think that part of that is getting to know who they are as a person so they can see their identity reflected in what you're doing, but also what their interests are, and not just topic interests, but also like the way they like to learn. Are they project people too? Are they techie people? Are they want to do real life simulations? And some students don't know what kind of people they are because they've never had teachers who've done those before. So I always try to be the teacher that gives them lots of different things so that they can say like, hey, when we get to the later half of the year, I let them pick a lot of their projects. They have been exposed to so many things. They've already made a green screen thing. They've already done a diorama thing. They've already made 3D projects. They've already, made posters. They've already designed something in Google Drawings. So that when I'm like, what do you want to do with this information? They have lots of skill sets to pull from, and they can kind of know what they like to create.
Love it.
And then the third thing goes right on with my brand is that I believe that every teacher is a leader. And the whole idea of teacher leadership is just synonymous, because when you're a teacher, you're a leader. You are in charge of so many students, and you make tons of instructional decisions that will definitely impact their life. And collectively, we impact entire communities. And I believe that every teacher is also an equity leader. Doing equity work is built in to the fabric of being a teacher. Any teacher who's gone to their principal and said, this kid doesn't have crayons, this kid didn't come with their school supplies. Any teacher who's scoured through Walmart looking for an extra pair of gloves for a kid who never has them. Any teacher who's ever said like, I'm just going to give the money for the field trip for this student, or has tried to find a snack out of their snack drawer because somebody didn't have snack. You are literally helping students to have equitable experiences in your classroom. You didn't go to Walmart and buy gloves for everybody, right? You didn't get snacks for your whole class. You gave the student who needed something, you gave them something different so that they could have an equal outcome. And so being an equity leader is built into the fabric of being a teacher. When you say to your students, everyone in this classroom is different, but you're all special, right? You're all unique. That's diversity, right? That's honoring diversity. When you advocate for students to have things that don't have them so that they can enjoy the same experiences as the rest of your students, that's equity. And when you say, make sure everyone has a partner, Make sure that everyone can play. Make sure that everyone feels that they can be a part of this activity. That's inclusion. I don't know how you can be a teacher without saying those things, right? And so my goal is that every teacher is an equity leader. And if we see ourselves as equity leaders, we will change the way school is done. We will advocate harder. We will be more inclusive. We will be more embracing of diversity in our classroom. And and so I think that that would be how I would end on something like that, because I also started a podcast recently, and it's called Equity Teacher Leader. And it's the idea that every teacher is an equity leader from their classroom. You're doing tons of things that are equity related. You may not even realize it, but you are an equity leader. And so let's start like believing it, right? So that we can really see the change happen.
I love it. And we'll have links to all of Rachel's information as well as her podcast in our show notes. So be sure to look at that. I can't think of a better way to end this episode with you, Rachael. Just seriously, it has been a wonderful just being able to connect with you and draw all about you. I'm going to zoom in on our drawing so we can just
I want to see them.
Fun we had with you. We got to take a trip to Pakistan and then hear all about the classroom. I think for me, one of my favorite things about this conversation was just being reminded about how uncomplicated it is to, like what you just shared at the end, because we are all doing the work in our classrooms all the time, those little things that you said. And then also just your reminders of the simple ways that we can add identity into our classrooms too. It just gave it a really wonderful way to put it. And for me, as someone who is intentional about a lot of the things that you said, it was really validating. So I appreciated all of that information. I'm sure Mandi does too, even as an administrator.
Absolutely. And so many things I related to from when I was in the classroom. It's super refreshing to hear people talk about it. And as I go into classrooms as an administrator and watch, I'm always hoping that I find those sorts of activities, the choice, things that get students excited, making sure that we are representing all of our students in the classroom. So I love your message. I wish my staff had been sitting here listening to it. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here with us. And then friends, if you're joining us here later and you drew along with us, snap a picture of your Doodle and Chat and share it out on your favorite social media platform, #Doodle and Chat. So Mandi and I can see all the fun that you have with us every time we post a new episode and a new friend joins us. And Rachael, thank you so much again. This was just a wonderful time.
Thank you for having me. This has been fabulous and incredibly unique experience. I loved it. Thank you.
That's what we strive for. Thank you for appreciating that too. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.